and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we sit down, I'd just like to have a moment of silence. This Saturday in 1941 was the attack on Pearl Harbor, and it's the 79th anniversary, so could we please have a moment of silence for those soldiers that had passed on? Thank you. Okay. So if we can, we're going to do a little things out of order tonight a little bit. So can we have an acceptance of the November 7th meeting minutes? If you could just take a look at them, and we'll put a motion on the floor when we finished reading. That was our very own Mrs. Mongello. She can make the motion.
That's what I was just saying. I said,
Of course. And we need a second? We got a second, one of our students. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so as Bill said, we're doing things a little bit out of order, just so that when the senator gets here, we can give her all of the time. So we do have some upcoming events. Those of you who are regulars to this committee know of some of these upcoming events, but just to mark your calendars, February 1st, which is a Saturday, is the Longwood 16th Regional Legislative Breakfast. It is co-sponsored by Eastern Suffolk BOCES and actually also co-sponsored by Suffolk Region PTA. So, hi, how are you? Good, come on up. So mark your calendars for that, and also mark your calendars for Wednesday, February 26th, which is BOCES Advocacy Day in Albany.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Pleased to meet you. And this, perfect timing, is Senator Martinez.
I don't do coats.
Good time.
No time for coats.
Goodness. So,
Hi.
thank you for, I'm thinking you sped from Manhasset to here. So.
No. We followed all the rules of the road.
So one of the things that we've learned to do, because we think it's helpful for our speaker, is actually to go around the room and introduce ourselves so that you have a sense of who you're speaking with.
Please.
All right? So,
We'll start at the end of the table with Willie.
Willie Shine, Eastern Suffolk BOCES Board Member.
Hi, I'm Ann McAstee, a board member also of Eastern Suffolk BOCES, and heard you last year at Longwood at the breakfast. It's great.
Pleasure. Thank you. And you said it was Ann?
Ann, A-N-N-E.
Thank you.
Laura Freeman, Suffolk Region PTA.
Danielle Flora, Islip School Board.
Mike Miles, Program Administrator for Student Support BOCES.
Paul Weston, Islip School Board.
I'm Lauren Crotto. I'm the English teacher for incarcerated at here at BOCES.
Lindsay Akizian, Communications Director for Central Virginia.
Anna Russell, student at Sequoia High School.
At where?
Sequoia High School.
Candace Palm, a special education teacher at Sequoia High School.
Walter Denzler, Eastern Suffolk BOCES Board Member and President of the Little Flower Special Act School District.
Julie Lutz, Chief Operating Officer.
Bill Miller, Chairperson of the Legislative Committee, Vice President of the Board.
Monica Martinez, New York State Senator.
I'm Leah Arnold, I'm the Director of Career, Technical, and Adult Education for Eastern Suffolk BOCES.
I'm Talia Mochi-Cliff, and I am the Art and Design and Visual Communications teacher here at the Academy. I am the Skills USA advisor for the students and parent of 2 former CTE kids.
Hi, Edward O'More Club, cabinet maker, parent of a former student.
I am that former student. Graduate of Sequoia High School and Blacksmith.
Nice.
Holly Lucci, Principal of Jefferson Athletic Center.
Josh Benitez, social work intern for BOCES, a Delphi BSW student, senior year, and Suffolk County employee for the housing department.
Lisa Mangiello, animal science teacher here at BTC.
Nice.
Joseph Bias, former animal science student.
Eva Mangiello, student at Square High School. Jill Hamill, I'm the food prep teacher at the Ward Technical Center in Riverhead. Hello there, Heather Battaglia, Office of Communications here at Eastern Suffolk BOCES. Kathy Malley, Executive Assistant for the Superintendent's Office.
Good evening, I'm Gina Riley, I'm Director of Special Ed here at Eastern Suffolk BOCES, and you've been to a number of our programs and have spoken to our students, so thank you for that.
Of course, thank you.
So I have a little bit of an introduction here. So happy to have you here. New York State Senator Monica Martinez is a Brentwood High School alumni, graduate of Binghamton University, having earned a dual Bachelor of Arts degree in Biology and History. She later attended New York University, attaining a master's degree in secondary education. In 2010, she was selected to lead the administration of Brentwood's East Middle School as assistant principal. In 2014, Senator Martinez began her career in government as the county legislator for Suffolk County's 9th legislative district, representing her home region. As a legislator, she championed legislation supporting animal rights, establishing the first Suffolk County Child Care Commission dedicated to equipping parents, educators, and elected officials with information on the importance of early learning during the first 0 to 5 years. She also funded numerous anti-gang, anti-violence programs through local nonprofit organizations which offer safe environments and mentorship programs to our youth. As an educator, Senator Martinez believes that all students should have easy access to any resource needed to successfully complete their studies. She teamed up with a former student to create a Friends in Tech event where young girls had the opportunity to participate in STEM-related activities. She also secured a $125,000 grant to create a STEM research program where students from Brentwood and Central Islip High School have been recognized as semifinalists in the Siemens competition. Senator Martinez is committed to eradicating the opioid epidemic through collaboration with local law enforcement, and she co-sponsored a bill implementing a public safety rapid response project, which is a new initiative aimed to ensure the safety of students and teachers in the event of an emergency. Ms. Martinez's legislative accomplishments prompted her seeking a higher office by running for the New York State Senate, and on November 6, 2018, she made history by being the first Latina and woman elected to represent the 3rd Senatorial District. Senator Martinez currently serves as the Assistant Majority Leader on Intergovernmental Affairs, in addition to serving as a member of a number of committees, including alcoholism and substance abuse, education, insurance, homeland security, and military affairs and veterans, just to name a few. Welcome.
So I think I'm done. There's another cut, right? No, thank you. Actually, I sit on 10 committees in total, and each one was chosen because each one has an impact in my district, one way or another, and I wanted to sit on committees that represented who I represent and in the 3rd. But thank you for that. Sometimes, just like you hear stuff, and it's just like, all right, but thank you for that. It's great to be here with you, and thank you for having me. And I know I've been to Sequoia. I've been to many, of the BOCES centers, speaking to our students, from those that are at risk to those who, are going for a trade. And it's always great to see teachers and the faculty and staff just loving the students, because I think that's what makes them prosper, right? And sometimes they're not getting the love that they should be getting at home, and they get it from you. So thank you as a fellow colleague and educator, because I will be an educator forever. Thank you for what you do. I know it's not easy. People think that as educators, it's 1, 2, 3, you come in, you leave, you're done. But we all know that's not what it is. They become our children. They become our families. And sometimes whatever they're going through, we take home with us. and sometimes those sleepless nights because we just don't know what happened or will happen when that child goes back home. So thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do for our students. So you heard a little bit about my background. I was a teacher for 10 years in the Brentwood School District. I taught history, I taught social studies, I had the AP courses, I had the honors program and Regents, and I also had a CWC, which is the class with the inclusion classes, which I loved. It was one of my favorite classes, and that's because they both sides learn from each other, and I think it's great to just bring everyone together and everyone can learn in different ways and appreciate others. So that was the core classes I had. I did teach psychology a couple of semesters, and I think that was my only elective. And
Could you explain the CWC for us that aren't?
yeah, so CWC is a class within a class. I don't even know if it's still called CWC, but they're inclusion classes where they put what's considered general population of our students mixed in with our special ed students. And then it's a small class and usually about 15, right? It's depending on the ratio. You have a special ed teacher with you, and that special ed teacher also has a TA with them, an assistant. And then I'm the lead teacher, but the special ed teacher assists me with her students or his students in the general population. And it's so great because they all learn from each other, right? So the special ed students feel that they can actually do, right, what people consider the general population. It just lifts them up. And then with the general population, it's like, look, let's all treat each other with respect, and we can all do things together. So that was a fun class. It really was. I was able to do a lot more with them because it was an elective. There was no regions at the end. It was just a final, so you really were able to interact with the students. So that was always my fun class. The honors program and the AP courses, those are no funny business in those classes, right? It's you start from the beginning, but it was actually pretty funny. As an AP teacher, my department head wouldn't assign a morning class for me because I'm not a morning person, right? And as an educator, it's kind of hard, right, that you're not a morning person. But it was funny that it would be the second period that I would really start, right? And I'm actually blushing because I'm embarrassed to even say that. But it was fun because one year I had the AP class first period, and it was just the way the scheduling worked. Oh my goodness. But they were up and ready to go, so I had to be up, ready and go. And it was funny because they also know that I have some issues with in my, I know where things are. You move things, I know you moved it. All my blinds were leveled, and I come in one morning, haven't even had my coffee yet, right? So that's the big problem. And then I come into my classroom, and the students had literally moved everything that was on the left side of my desk to the right, and vice versa, right? They completely turned my desk around because they know how crazy. Oh my gosh, yes. So I walk in, haven't even had my coffee yet, and I saw my desk, and the blinds were all up and down. I literally almost had a heart attack. And I walked in, and I said, I'm going to walk right back out. And when I come right back in, I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes, and I'm going to come back in, and everything should be back to the way it was before I came in. Or then your weekends are not, you're going to be you're not going to like me when you come back on Monday, right? So, of course, they fixed everything, and everything went back to normal. But those are the things that I miss as a teacher, right? And just that interaction. And I was there for 10 years in the Brentwood School District. I graduated from Brentwood. But I didn't grow up in Brentwood. I grew up in Nassau, and I moved to Brentwood. And I will tell you, my move to Brentwood was actually the best thing that my parents ever did. And that's because it showed me diversity, and it showed me to appreciate my own culture, right? Because in Nassau, I didn't have anything that was like me. And instead of going to quinceañeras, right, or communions, I was going to bat mitzvahs, and right, so it was completely different. I was in Lynbrook, And it was different, right? And even just everything, the dress, the food. And then when I went to Brentwood, I'm not going to lie to you, I cried to my mother and my father because I wanted to go back to Lynbrook. I left all my friends, and my parents were ready to move back, and they said, okay, just give it a week. Just give it a week, and we'll see how it goes.
How old were you when you moved?
10th grade.
Oh, rough time.
So, so everything had been Lynbrook. And so in 10th grade, my mother worked really hard with my father to purchase our house, right? So they worked hard, and now we have our house. And so for us to move back after everything, but they would have, right? I was just completely depressed at the whole new culture shock. I literally went through a culture shock when I went from Lynbrook to Brentwood. But I learned so much, and it opened my eyes to what the world is, right, and what's around us. And it was the best move my parents ever made. And to this day, I thank them, even though I cried for a whole entire week. But then I met some great people. I met some great who became friends of mine. We no longer talk, I don't have any high school friends at this point. Everyone's college and on. But it was good. It was nice, and that's why, it hurts me sometimes when people talk bad about Brentwood or Central Islip, because the majority of people in that district, they're hardworking parents, and all they want is what's best for their children. And some of these parents are working multiple jobs, and people don't know what they're going through. And yes, we have issues, but you know what? Every district has issues. Unfortunately, the media is able to portray some others and not, some more than not. And I think the media plays a huge role when it comes to that. But I think as professionals, policymakers, educators, parents, whomever, the village that we all talk about, right? I think it's upon us to shine on the brightness, right, and to make sure that we uplift the good and let people know that there's good, and that's our responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the child; it's ours as adults to do that. And little by little, Brentwood has come up here and there, bad and good. And just recently, the boys soccer team won state champs soccer. Okay, but in the same paper, the same exact paper. Was MS-13, trial, so it's just like you have something so positive, but then you have this negative article in the same paper on the same day when you're trying to highlight something positive, so the media plays such a huge role, and obviously, the sports are in the back of the paper, MS-13 is second page, right? So those are the difficult things. Yeah, and that's not Brentwood, right? Brentwood is positive, and that's what we try to encourage our kids and our teachers to do. But so I was there for 10 years, and then I went to Stony Brook to obtain my school building and my school district leadership certificate. And then I was hired as an AP. I was an assistant principal, also in Brentwood, at one of the middle schools. And I will tell you, as a high school teacher, I always wondered what happened, right, when they got to me as a high school teacher. Like, what happened down below? And a lot happens at the middle school level, right? And those are by far, I think, the most formidable years. Those are the years that a child, in my opinion, can go either left or right. Right? It's so unfortunate sometimes that parents feel that at that age they don't need to be involved anymore. We see more involvement at the lower, like kindergarten. They're fine in kindergarten, right? I mean, they're loving, they're cute, and right. But from even 5th grade on, those are the years where I saw and I felt that parents needed to be more involved, and to this day, I believe in that. So when I was an assistant principal, I'm like, yep, I know what happened, right? I know exactly what happened, and either you didn't have the parental support, you didn't have the school support, you didn't have this, you didn't have that, you didn't have the resources. Some of our children are being diagnosed with certain disabilities too late. Early intervention is not being given as soon as it should be. So we have a lot of delays, and then you wonder why a kid is acting up, right? And instead of punishing the child, we should really be looking as to what is going on in that child's life and as to why that child is acting the way they're acting. I don't think any child just misbehaves just to misbehave. There's always something behind it. And I think sometimes we fail our kids in that part, right? Not on purpose, obviously. Sometimes could be lack of resources, which is something that we just discussed with the Superintendent Association a few weeks ago. And look, and funding is very important. I get it, right? And we got to figure out how to support our schools and our students. And I know that the school districts across Long Island, they do so much with the little that they have. You know how to literally stretch that dollar to protect our kids and make sure that they have the education that they so deserve. Do we see inequities across districts? Yeah, we do, right? You can't hide that. You definitely see some school districts obtain more funding than others. Some struggle more than others. Some have more kids than others. And I just don't think education is equitable when it comes to funding across the state of New York. And that's something that we're working on this year as a member of the Education Committee, is really finding ways on how to fund our schools fairly, right? Because you have schools upstate New York that have less children than we do here, and they're getting more money than we are. And Long Island has been shortchanged, and that's no lie. That's not a secret. And it's time that we step up to do what's right. And we were just with Julie a couple of weeks ago with the Association of Superintendents, and that's a concern, right? Especially now with the 2% cap, and we get it. And but we have to find ways, right? We have to think outside the box sometimes now. I think we need to start looking at other ways to fund education and see how we can work together, right? Our kids need the best that they can receive. So I did that for 4 years, and then I was asked to run for the county legislature. I said no. I've said no to every election that I've been asked to run for, and clearly, eventually they convinced me. But how I ended up in politics is because of school and what was happening with a case that I had. And I will tell you that it came full circle. So one day I had a girl who didn't want to go home. She didn't want to go home. And she's now at the school at 5 o'clock to take the 5 o'clock bus. She could have been home already. But it turns out that she didn't want to go home because she had no oil and therefore no heat and no food at home. So school is providing her with food. School is providing with warmth. So she tried to stay as long as she could in our building. I tried to call the next day, Department of Social Services. I couldn't do anything because I'm just the administrator, right? The parent used to go to DSS and ask for assistance, but the parent works, right? She can't take off, or then she'll get fired. So all this was happening at the same time that I'm being asked to run. And my predecessor was someone who wasn't really liked. There was a string of murders that were taking place in Brentwood at that time too. People were just tired. People just wanted change. So because of that incident, I said, okay, I'll run. And I ran successfully, both the primary and the general. And then when I was elected in 2013, when I entered office in 2014, same school, same guidance counselor, different kid, didn't want to go home. Same scenario, okay? And there's the best part of my job, which I love, is I was now able to pick up that phone, call DSS, oil delivered within 30 minutes to that household. And but it just shows, right, the bureaucracy and the red tape, and it's unfortunate that as an administrator, I see this child every day. We should be able to do that, right? And make it easy for someone who needs help to get that help. And sometimes you just need that lending hand, and then they could structure themselves back up, right? So it came full circle. And that to me is the nature of my job and what I love about what I do. Do I miss education? I guess I miss teaching the subject matter, right? I love teaching history. I love it. but I don't miss everything else. I do not miss the grading. I do not miss calling the parents because, I'm just about to suspend your child because they were in a fight, or calling a teacher because, they grab the kid's hair, so those things are the things that I don't miss. And part of my job, too, is to be in the schools, so therefore I really don't miss that much because I'm still interacting with students, and I'm still talking to students, and I go to speak to students. So for me, I feel I'm effectuating greater change being on this side, and really telling our students to get involved civically in your community, become one with where you live. And so that's really where I'm at. And then I was at the legislature for 5 years. I was asked to run for the New York State Senate. I said no 3 times. And then, it's this one I didn't have a story. Well, actually I did. And the story is, if you really want to know, I'm going to get deep and personal right now. So I was dating someone who didn't like my job, right? And said that if I would run for the New York State Senate, we would break up. And I said, well, that's not very nice, right? So, I contemplated. There were several things that I contemplated as to why I wasn't going to run for the Senate. I am my parents' caretakers. Both my mom and my dad are with me. And I was going to take a huge pay cut. So it was my family, it was him, my dogs and cats. So I had a slew of reasons as to why not to run. And then that day that I was asked again to run, he's not my ex, we got into an argument, and I called back. I said, I'm running. Right? Because I wasn't, I was not going to allow that to even happen. So that's don't tell the governor, but that's really why I decided to finalize. And I was going to take the pay cut and figure it out, right? But I felt that this was a calling. The opportunity knocked. I didn't look for it. It knocked on the door again of my life. And again, I'm here, and we help so many people. And the motto in my office is, you help one person, you have helped many others. Because if you teach that one person how to acquire certain information, and they know that someone's going through similar situations, they now can help that person. And my office knows that when someone calls, it better be a friendly voice that person hears on the other side, because they're calling our office because they have a problem. All right. Well, aside from complaining and yelling and, as to why I'm not supporting certain things, but the phone calls are because they are in need, and therefore they need to hear that friendly voice when they call the office. And some people you can't help, right? It's just, there's certain things that as a state you can't do, but our responsibility is to find those referrals to make sure that we can say, well, we can help you here, but we're going to connect you with that, right? And for someone to say there's no solution does not exist. That's not true. There's always a solution. We just have to find it and dig a little deeper and help out. And that's what the office does. And now I'm here. I'm completing my first year of my first term. It's been quite hectic. It's been quite challenging. It's something that I didn't expect, right, in terms of how Albany government works. It's nasty. It's dirty. And with everything I've done, I know that when I go to bed at night, I am sleeping soundly because I did the right thing on behalf of my constituents. There have been a couple of votes that, me personally, I have had different opinions, but I can't use my personal feelings when going forward with policy, because it's not about me. It's about who I represent and what my district wants and why they brought me there to Albany. So I go back January 8th. We just had about 20 inches of snow up there. So I may have to start wearing a coat up there. But while I'm here, no coat. But anyway, so that's really me in a nutshell, right? Obviously, you crack it, there's so much more in there. But it's, I love what I do. I really do. We've been able to do great things. Like you heard, I sit on several committees. I've had great legislation that I have sponsored and proud of, and whether it's women, children, animals, it's been a great year for me. I think I sponsored about 80. I sponsored 80 bills this session. As of right now, 16 of them have been signed. So those are chapter amendments on our books, and it's gratifying, right? It's and a lot of my bills have passed unanimously, both Republican and Democratic support, which to me is telling, right? I am one of the few that is able to cross that aisle, and that's the only way to get things done. I don't believe in party lines.
That's what they're doing in the federal government, constantly fighting each other.
And we shouldn't do that, right? Yes, there is a letter in parentheses at the end of my name, right? But that's just for politics, right? I think that's just when you're running for office that you need to have a party affiliation. But I believe that there's a difference between politics and governance. And I like to govern, right? This is what I do. This is what I was elected to do, is to govern. The politics, unfortunately, comes in order to get elected, right? But I have never run a nasty campaign. I have always run on my record of doing the right thing. And sometimes we're not going to agree on everything, and that's just human, right? We're not going to agree. But I think what we are failing to do at all levels of government is actually having conversation. I am one that likes to bring people to the table. 2 of my bills have been stuck up in the Senate for years because communications were not taking place with the groups that may be affected. So one bill it's called revenge porn, which is the illegal distribution of intimate images without the consent of the other. And the way that came about, I had an incident when I was an administrator as a 6th grader. She took pictures of herself. She was a very developed 6th grader, okay? I felt horrible that she was so developed beyond her years, and she was dating a kid, 11 years old. That's why I don't have children. But she took a picture of herself and she sent it to her boyfriend, right? But it wasn't her boyfriend that actually sent the picture. A friend of his saw the picture on his phone and then decided to spread it, right? That child, I actually, and this is the unfortunate part, that, and you can all, one way or another be able to understand and empathize with it, is that the victim usually is the one that gets the short end of the stick, right? So this poor girl started cutting herself, had to call CPEP, the whole Stony Brook, get her evaluated because she was getting bullied. She just wanted to end her life because of this. And I brought, the boyfriend's like, I didn't do it. We found out finally who was it, and there was no repercussions for this child, right? Aside from just being suspended. But so this piece of legislation, now a person can sue not only criminally, but they can also sue civilly, well, through, and it does not hold children, like it holds children responsible as well. So if someone disseminates information without the consent of the other person, you can take it to criminal court. A child who does that under the age of 18, they can still be charged. The only thing is that they will be going against a family judge instead of a criminal judge, right? So obviously we don't want to put a kid away, but they also have to understand that you can't do this. And that bill had been stuck up in the Senate for a long time. And Senator Boyle had the bill, and I took over, and he's like, look, hope you have better luck with this, right? So I said, well, who have we spoken to, right? So it turns out that the Internet Association, your lobbyist, okay, of the Internet Association, they were worried because when if you're disseminating images and they go up on the Internet, they felt, well, I don't know that, right? As Google or whomever, well, how do I know that's up there, right? I can't be held liable and you can't go after me since I don't know, right? And it made sense. So then we said, okay, so what can we do, right? So so what we ended up doing is that they now have to get the victim has to get an injunction from the court, and then the internet, whatever site is on, they are told that it's up. If upon being told that it's up, they are to take it down. If they don't, then you can go after the internet, right? So the internet was worried that, look, you putting stuff up there and I have no clue, and they were right. But these conversations weren't happening, and they were never had. So when I tell you the conversations aren't happening, they're not.
Afraid to have them.
I'm telling you, I am not afraid to have any conversation, right? And I think, and that's what happened, right? So now in the other bill that happened the same way, and Phil Boyle's great. Him and I work so well together. A lot of our bills that I have taken from him, right? Because now the majority has switched. Bills that he hasn't been able to get through, we've been able to get through. So he's been co-prime sponsor. I've been the prime sponsor. He's been the co-prime. And I feel awful, but these are his bills, right? They should have been passed. The other one is Shannon's Law. Shannon's Law actually allows women now between the ages of 35 and 40 to get annual mammograms upon a physician's recommendation. Currently, the law read that a woman only got one mammogram from between 35 and 40. Like, you were only entitled to one. So now,
that insurance?
Yes. So that was right. So now, why hasn't this bill passed? Right? Because the insurance lobbies, your insurance companies, they were worried. They didn't want to pay. Right? So are we preventing care? Are we doing preventive medicine, or are we doing, after the fact, right? So we put language in there that they were happy with, pass unanimously, all right? And I think, and Phil and I joke around all this time, right? And it's like, do you want all my bills? I'm like, just give them to me, right? We'll figure it out, right? But he is such a great man, and we work well together. So those are, two prime examples of bills that were stuck up there that because the conversations didn't take place for whatever fear or whatever, because you're being given money by insurance lobbyists or whatever, right? Things weren't done.
They shouldn't have lobbyists.
And look, and it happens, right? And that's why campaign finance reform is something that we're working on, and making sure that we close the LLC loophole, right? So many LLCs were giving money here and there. We closed that loophole where it's just one-time shot, right? But we're trying to reform that so we can actually get actual citizens to participate, right? And it's not corporate, and it's not donations, and it's donations from grassroots and people that we represent. So that should be coming down sooner than later, hopefully. But in Suffolk County, when I was at the legislature, we passed the first public finance reform in the county, and I was part of that, and that's something that we need to do statewide. So it's a lot.
Those bills that you just referenced, has the governor signed them?
Yes, he has. Yes, so both have been signed, and I'm not done, right? So even with the revenge porn, we're going a little further. With Shannon's Law, we're going a little further, but we first had to get it through the door, right? And now we're just going to keep making it better and stronger.
You talk about revenge porn, but we were made aware that there's a prostitution bill along with the marijuana bill that's going to be signed off on or passed.
Who said that? Who said that? Because I will tell you right now,
I'm just asking, we were made aware of that. I mean, at the last, I guess in June.
This is the way it was said. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw prostitution legalized in New York State.
Okay, so that statement does not surprise me.
Yeah.
All right, because and look, and I'm not going to bash colleagues, right? But I don't think we're thinking, if that makes sense. So right now on Long Island, believe it or not, sex trafficking, human trafficking is running rampant. And people have a perception of what it actually is, okay? It's not what you see on TV. Sex trafficking is happening within our schools. It's happening in schools that you think would have never experienced such a thing. You have young girls walking in our hallways that are part of this. And people have a face, apparently, to what they think sex trafficking is. But whatever face you have, it's probably wrong. and it's scary, right? Because we have young girls who can't get out. The DA has created an entire sex crime, human trafficking unit. Our PD is like literally all over, right? So yes, this prostitution bill, which I think is disgusting, right? I'll be voting no on it, but I really hope it does not even make the floor.
How does that
Okay.
help anything? How does that help?
So the mentality, right? The mentality is that if you legalize it, you can control it, you can get money from it, right? You can.
There's another side to this, because for the sex worker, right, the sex trafficking, the concern is that we continue to victimize the victims, because the girls you're talking about are often victims themselves. The way current legislation works is that if you are a sex worker, you're the one that the laws go after. They very rarely go after the perpetrators. So I think, the way that was framed was legalizing prostitution. I don't know that really was the intent.
The intent.
So when you look at I don't know if you have you read the bill?
Yeah, that's.
So, and even within the bill, right, it's still very vague, okay? And not only is it vague, but you are now changing the name of the person who uses the ladies as a manager now, right? So you're completely changing the entire industry. And I forgot what our DA said, but about 1% probably are women who actually want to do this, okay? Who are actually working for sex. The rest are being forced into it, right? So who are we protecting? Right? Are we not protecting those that are being victimized? And I get it, okay, but you want to get, this is the wrong way to get revenue in our state, all right?
That's ridiculous.
During the introductory phase, I didn't mention it, but I am also the retired undersheriff of Suffolk County.
Very nice.
And what I see developing out of Albany, and this is very disturbing to me, is in order to reduce our jails and prisons, we've embarked on a process of decriminalizing various things which are perceived as nonviolent crimes and what have you. Not to mention what goes into effect next month, no bail. And this, I think, is also something that people are not really cognizant of the long-term effect that that's going to have.
I cannot disagree with you, right? I completely agree with you. I was actually very upset that it was put in the budget, okay? And that's the one thing I hate about Albany, this whole big ugly thing, right? So the big ugly is the Hopper. Upton Sinclair is the Hopper? Yeah. Everything is just thrown in there, all right, whether you like it or not.
Did they put marijuana in there with it?
No, so they wanted to. And look, and
So sometimes they tack stuff on.
and I'm getting, so bail was put in there, right? I'm a supporter of law enforcement. I was chair of public safety at the Suffolk County Legislature. What we're about to see, and I really hope that we put somewhat of a halt before we go in. I've asked the governor to please hold on the implementation of this, but we're not ready. Law enforcement's not ready to move forward with this. In my district alone, okay, of the inmates that are right now incarcerated, 41% of those incarcerated right now have the possibility of being released come January 1st into my district, okay, which includes, and these are the areas where they are going based on their zip code: Brentwood, Central Islip, Bellport, Patchogue, Massac Shirley. Those are my 5 main areas where our incarcerated now, okay, may be released. And we, I work well with the sheriff and corrections, and there are even inmates, especially women, who don't want to leave because, one, they're actually on their way to recovery, right, due to addiction, and they're in the jails recovering. And they have actually signed affidavits saying, I'm not leaving. right? I want to finish. I want to get sober. So these are the things that I, need to show the governor. Like, this is what my, they're mine, right? Even though they're in jail, they're mine, right? So they actually want to stay. And the fact is, we're fighting an epidemic of drugs, and they're trying to stay sober, and there's certain crimes that have been that have been removed from that, and myself and Senator Gorin tried to reinstate other crimes to be put back in that do deserve to be either given bail or not. And I think what we've always have also done is that we have tied the hands of our judges, and there's a reason why we have 3 branches of government, right? And I think what we just now did, and it just happened in Riverhead, the individual who hit a pedestrian was released with no bail, and that crime would have been, would have been given. He would have to have given bail to be released, and but the judge said, would this be, would this person be, up for no bail, no cash bail come January 1st? The attorney said, yeah. He said, okay, no bail, right? So this is what we're seeing. It's not going to, and we're going to start seeing more of that. And trust me, everyone knows how I feel about it. Unfortunately, like I said, it was in the budget, and you vote for it, right? And it was hard because I worked to get money for schools. I worked to get money for anti-gang violence programs. I worked hard to get, so when you see all this and you want this and you work so hard to acquire certain things. So for example, bless you, the pre-K initiative that I was able to allocate $475,000 for a pre-K program to at least try to get pre-K into our schools. And I fought hard to get that money, right? So, and that's in the budget. But then they couple all this other stuff in that I don't agree with, but I worked hard for that money, so, so it just stinks, right? And that's why they call it the big ugly, because it is. It's just ugly. And, so.
Is there any chance of reforming that, where you tie all these things into the budget, like to separate them out?
Bless you. So we tried, right? So marijuana was one of the things that they wanted to go into the budget. We fought hard for it, right? I'm publicly, and I have publicly stated this, I am against the legalization of marijuana. I have said that. I don't have a problem saying that. I'm on the record saying that. But again, bless you, we're looking for revenue, right? Okay. But we're looking in the wrong places. We're going through an epidemic of a drug, like literally we're on another war on drugs here, and we're about to legalize marijuana, right? So for me, I have a hard time where there is some sort of, being a hypocrite, right? Like I just, and the other thing is like, all right, so we want to legalize marijuana, but yet we want to ban vaping. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense to me. How can you do one thing and then not do the other? So this is what keeps me up sometimes at night, right? Because like, how do we do that? How do we move forward? We see our kids being addicted to the vaping, and we're trying to, and I even had a bill when I spoke at the one with, I was the only female actually at that of legislators, and I put a bill in to limit the amount of vaping stores that could spring up around schools. It didn't even get out of the committee because New York City felt that I would hurt them because their blocks are different than our blocks, right? So it was based on miles and this and that. So now I'm working with the city to put language in there that, our blocks, so we're going to follow the liquor license law, right? Depending on so we're going to try to replicate the licensing for liquor the same way, so for the vaping stores. But, it's an executive order that we're banning vaping and flavored vaping. But, so it's just hard for me to understand how we could do that and yet legalize marijuana. It just doesn't make sense to me. So those are the things that go on, which become hard. Schools are being brought with so many new mandates and unfunded mandates. And, I was just approached to do a program, and I even asked, I said, how is it going to be funded, right? I said, we can't keep putting so much strain on our schools, and they don't have the money to do so. They're great ideas, but where's the funding? And I even said it at the last meeting with the Superintendents Association, I am the only person, and because obviously the education component, that fought the governor against a 2% cap in terms of schools. Exempt the schools. But obviously that didn't work, and you're not changing his mind, and that's done, right? As property owners, great for us, okay? But as schools,
Taxes are going crazy.
well, that's why the 2% cap, right? But now the schools now have to also stay under that, which again ties their butt.
I don't want to see teachers like trying to work with no money, but I mean, the property tax just is getting insane in our area. So it's kind of like a lose-lose.
It is.
So let me just say, first of all, thank you, and I want to give just a couple minutes for people to have ask questions. Although we're close to 8:28, I don't want to tie you up. I will say, one of the things that I have definitely noticed in the office is your office is the only one that proactively will call not only BOCES but districts and say, could you tell me what would the impact of this decision be on schools if we made this decision? So,
Thank you.
The willingness to listen and communicate and think through and problem solve and say, okay, maybe it can't be done this way, but let's see if we can, do it a different way. Find language that is going to accomplish what we can accomplish is really like a breath of fresh air. So
Thank you
for that.
I appreciate that.
So maybe just a couple of minutes for questions. Anybody have questions for the senator?
While you were a county legislator, were you able to maintain your teaching job?
No.
Really?
It became political. Sorry. In the past, men have been able to keep their teaching job and do legislative. I was not. So I took a major pay cut. But everything happens for a reason, and I love it. I love what I do. So.
Can you tell us what's going on in Albany with the bills for the HPV virus being mandatory and without parental consent or even parental knowledge? And they want us to do it in the schools without people even knowing it.
I hate that bill. Okay. I am completely standing behind you. All right. I've had several school districts already reach out. Apparently, from what I heard, is that these bills have been out there. Right. I will tell you, for me, personally, I'm not talking about HPV or flu shot. For me personally, I believe in vaccinations. Right. I'm not talking about HPV or flu, just in general. But I believe in a parent's choice, right? And I think, but I also believe in public health, okay? So how do we balance both, right? I've had school districts who have reached out to me worried that their top kids, top athletes, even their own children, okay, are not vaccinated and now have to be taken out, okay? Worried. But with the HPV and the flu shot, the fact that we're mandating that is not even a public health issue. I don't understand how we can force our schools to do that. The HPV is in a way, sexually transmitted. So for me, what we're really pretty much saying is like, okay, you can start having sex now, right? Because you're going to be given the shot.
Our district's viewpoint is that you can't catch it in a school. So it seems to us, it's a non-communicable disease within our schools. So
it's not.
Why are we being forced to enforce?
I agree, right? So you're not telling me something I don't I get it. I mean, I think it's, I wish I could use the actual words I want to use. But I think it's wrong on so many different levels, right? We're literally taking away not only the parents' choice, right? But we're putting another issue on the schools. And yes, it's not a disease that you can acquire in school, right? Unless you are having sex in school. But it's I don't even know what you mean to tell. Like I'll be voting no on those bills.
Possible it's going to be folded into the budget next year, just slip it in?
I doubt it.
You're going to have a major revolt.
And I hope it happens.
The testing boycott, it's going to pale compared to this one.
And I hope it happens, right? Because I think people do not see exactly what these two bills will do. And they're separate bills. So it's the HPV and the mandatory flu shot.
Who's sponsoring these? Who's pushing?
Senator Hoylman.
And does he have like lobby or?
No, he just believes in. No.
I'm sure there's no lining in his pockets.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's just, it's. He's in the city, Manhattan.
That is not a new bill. It's a bill that's been kicking
Yeah,
for a while.
for a while.
It's never gone anywhere. So some of the thinking is, well, and it's also a sensitive year for talking about, immunization. So, right. I mean, to tell you the truth, this is what I've heard. Other than on Long Island, the state is not really talking about it, but Long Island is frequently the epicenter of conversations about things that,
Could be.
right.
They need to hear us, right? They need to hear us loud and clear. But I look, like I said, it's been around. People feel it's not going to happen.
We just heard the governor is behind it this time.
I don't know who you heard that from, but I have not heard anything along those lines. I'm in communication with his office every day. This is something that has not even come up in conversation. Again,
Mr. Wellman has said that.
yeah, I don't. And again, I could, verify, right, and see where the office is at this point, but I don't know. I really don't know, but I have not heard that he's behind this.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
making time to come.
Of course, thank you.
For telling us your story, for being so open and honest.
It's a long story, answer.
We have.
I know, right? I prefer elected official, please.
There you go. We have a thank you for you, and if you have a minute for a photo with the kids, with the students, they're not really kids.
Do the students have any